All right, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the world famous Prospect Avenue podcast, your definitive source for everything Buffalo Sabres prospects. I'm your host, Kris Baker, still here in the bunker in lovely Hamburg, New York. Date of recording, January 27th, 2025. We are officially 5 months away from the 2025 NHL draft. And we are a day removed from the Buffalo Bills' tough loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC title game. So it's time to ramp up your Buffalo Sabres coverage. And we're going to begin doing so today by bringing everybody up to speed on what's been happening in the world of the Buffalo Sabres prospects. And before we begin, if you could please, if you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel. If audio is your thing, you can find Prospect Avenue on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, leave a 5-star review. We're literally everywhere, Fokker. So you can find it audio. You can find it right here on YouTube as well. And this is a YouTube-based show. We have a lot of highlights that we show, and we're going to do that again today. And we're going to kick off this week's episode by going to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to a player that we've talked about on previous episodes of Prospect Avenue because he's had a pretty solid season from start to finish. And that's Michigan Tech third-year forward, Stiven Sardarian. Sardarian's continued to prove that he's one of the elite playmakers in all of college hockey this season. Number 6, if you're watching on video here, he's up to 0.77 assists per game this season. That gives him a slight edge on TPS Turku forward Viljami Marjala. For tops among Sabres prospects this season in terms of assists, Sardarian has been on a heater for the past month plus. He recently completed a 12-game stretch that saw him collect 17 total points on 3 goals and 14 helpers. The CCHA, they've awarded the Forward of the Week 15 times this season. Sardarian's gathered that award 3 of those 15 times, most recently on January 2nd, 2025, but he also picked it up December 16th, as well as earlier in the season back on November 11th. So again, pretty steady producer all season long since transferring to the CCHA and joining the Michigan Tech program. So Sardarian currently sits with 10 goals and 30 total points this season. He's second in the CCHA in terms of points, and he's tied for 9th nationally. And he's now one of a gazillion finalists for the 2025 Hobey Baker Memorial Award. You can vote for Sardarian and advance his efforts if you go to the Hobey Baker site. Want to go there and click and throw him a vote. Might help out his confidence, but he's certainly a very confident player. He's supremely confident, as a matter of fact. And look, this is a guy well-liked by his teammates. He's a pass-first player, no doubt. You like to see him shoot more, but, there's other parts of his game that are going to be critical to his development moving forward, largely his defensive zone awareness and his general off the puck play. These players can always get better. Sardarian is no different in that category. Really good when he has the puck on a stick, incredibly skilled. Like I mentioned, really confident. He can produce offense, creates space, finds open teammates, but it's that total game that needs to keep developing. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the Sabres handle him moving forward. He's put on weight thanks to extra lifts that he did, going back to the second half of last season when he was still at the University of New Hampshire, and he continued it into the offseason. You see how that work that he did translate on the ice, much stronger over the puck, better in the corners. He's currently playing at about 180 pounds. Has some growing to do still, but that was a move in the right direction. I think he picked up probably 12 to 15 pounds of mass since joining the collegiate ranks. And I think there's a decent chance that the Sabres could sign Sardarian this offseason and get him in. Although I think it's clear, my personal opinion is that one more year of collegiate hockey would be best for his long-term development. As far as getting the message and getting it to sink in, Sardarian is a very smart human being. He's actually an English major at Michigan Tech. And I think working to just get him to truly understand how all of that work that he does when he doesn't have the puck, how that makes him a more valuable player, and more importantly, increases his ability and probability to play at the highest levels possible. It's going to be critical, and I think it's something that they can pull off. So really good storyline that's developed with Sardarian this season with the move to Michigan Tech. And it's got some, good chunk of season left to go. So Sardarian and Michigan Tech, they're going to be off this weekend. And then next weekend, they get back to work. They host Bemidji State. And Sardarian has 6 points in 2 games versus the Beavers this season, including a goal and 4 helpers and a 9-5 win over Bemidji State back on December 14th. So good matchup for Sardarian after having a week off, and expectations that he'll keep taking his game to the next level. But no doubt, one of the best offensive players in college hockey all season long, and a really nice development for the Sabres player development staff to see and get a chance to work with him here moving forward. So really curious to see what becomes of him. Skilled, confident, has some work to do, but really promising season for Sardarian here in his 3rd year of collegiate hockey. We're going to stay in the NCAA ranks real quick and go over to the Big Ten, where there was a big matchup last weekend with number 2 Michigan State taking on number 4 University of Minnesota. And that, of course, featured 2 Sabres prospects on the Michigan State side and defenseman Maxim Strbak and Patrick Geary. And on the Gophers side, of course, you had Brodie Ziemer playing up on that top even strength forward unit opposite Jimmy Snuggerud, who is one of the top point producers in all of college hockey this year. Strbak himself, he had a career best 4 helpers on Friday as the number 2 Spartans stormed past Ziemer and the Gophers by a 9-3 score. You see here on the first one, it was a D-zone keep at the right point. Strbak just jams the puck forward, and that helped create the game's first goal. His second helper, he pounces on a turnover, quickly scans and springs the attack, the transition game, down the right side. Michigan State goes in for the finish to increase their lead on the Gophers there early in the 3rd period, or midway through the 3rd period, rather. The third assist, Strbak controlled the puck off the draw. Again, jump started the attack with a nice board pass, and the Spartans are going to break into the zone, make a nice pass across the seam there, and they get the finish to add to their lead. And then the final helper came late in the game. Spartans get the puck at the top of the zone. They go D to D, and that's Strbak finding fellow Sabres prospect Patrick Geary. He just sends a puck right to the net, and it finds its way into the net for Geary's first goal of the season. So Strbak, rock solid, right-handed defenseman, 6'2", 205. He now has 1 goal, 14 total points in 23 blocked shots in 22 games this season, leading the Spartans blue line. He has 5 assists in 6 games since returning from his World Junior appearance with Slovakia. While we're on that Big Ten matchup, we do have to mention that Brodie Ziemer also got in on the action. He scored his first goal in 5 games since returning from winning gold with Team USA at the World Junior Championship. So he's now up to 9 goals and 15 total points in his first 26 collegiate contests. Like I mentioned, he's been long, really after the first block of games, he moved his way right up the lineup, and he's been holding down a wing spot there on Minnesota's number 1 even strength forward unit. So Ziemer, hard worker, heart and soul guy. I think that he's firmly in the mix to be the captain for Team USA next year at the World Junior Championship when that tournament is played right in his backyard in the Minneapolis-St. Paul region. We're going to stay in college hockey with a couple other news and notes before we move on here. And it's going to be my stat of the week. So Boston University sophomore defenseman Gavin McCarthy, another right-hander, he currently leads Hockey East with 50 blocked shots. So we know that he's a defensive-oriented guy, rugged, likes to be physical, but he's sacrificing the body as well. 50 block shots thus far. That's a good number for him. Puts him in that, upper crust in the national lead in that category as well. I think he's top 12 in that category for block shots. So good number there. He also has 43 penalty minutes, which is second amongst all Hockey East skaters. So again, he's got that snarl, doesn't back down, takes his fair share of penalties as well. So McCarthy, despite it all, despite the high penalty minute total, he continues to log nice minutes there on the Terriers back end, averaging 23.01 per game. All right. we'll do a quick Amerks update here. We're going to cruise through this episode. We're moving at a good pace, and let's just spend a couple minutes here on the Amerks. Not going to go too deep, but we got to give them a little bit of love here because they're having an excellent season there down on the farm. The Amerks currently holding down second place in the AHL's North Division with a 24-12, 3-1 record. That's a 650 points percentage, and it's a team that scores a lot of goals. But you still are looking for ways that they can improve as a team. And one area that you can isolate is certainly on the power play, where they're clicking at just 17.3%. So this is a team, they get a lot of opportunities, third most power play opportunities in the AHL. You just want to see them be able to do more with it. And they certainly have the firepower. One of the guys that's been doing great things all year long, really from start to finish, and that's Isak Rosén. He continues to lead the way for the Amerks this season with 18 goals and 34 total points. Rosén netted a pair of goals and an assist on the Amerks last game out on Saturday. And that was his fourth 3-point game of the season, a big 6-3 win at Hartford. A fight-filled game there. End of the second period, saw a little bit of a melee line brawl. It was a slaggert. Tulio was out there. Komarov took a guy down with a couple nice right hands. Jagger Joshua was out there. I'm missing one. We almost had a goalie fight with Dylan Garand taking on Felix Sandstrom, but the refs got in and ended that potential fun. Not going to show clips of that because YouTube's pretty sensitive by showing fights, and I don't feel like going to YouTube jail anytime soon. I kind of like this channel. I'm proud of the fact that I don't have any strikes yet. But at any rate, good game for Rosén, good game for a couple other players as well. And we'll get to one here in a second who had a nice game. But wanted to mention also on the blue line, second-year player, lefty, big defenseman, Nikita Novakov. He finished last year as an AHL rookie at a +20 rating. This year, he is at +19, which is tied for third in the entire AHL. He's becoming a workhorse there on kind of that middle pair, we'll call it, with Zachary Metsa. If you go back last year, Seth Apper, when he was running the Amerks bench, it was a rotating, just a revolving door of partners for Novikov and every other defenseman. They were mixing up the partners almost every game, it seemed. This year, a little bit more steady. You got Ryan Johnson and Jack Rathbone getting the tough matchups. You got that middle pair with Metsa, who's really mobile, and Novikov, who has some juice of his own offensively, but he's more of that rock steady defender back there in the defensive zone. Novikov, biggest leaps in his game, no doubt, is the strength development. Big frame, big reach, moves pretty well, needed to get stronger, needs to continue to get stronger. And he put a lot of work in this season in the offseason. You can see it leading to good results there in the defensive zone. Very physical, finishes his checks, defends his crease after the whistle, had a suspension for coming up high on a guy with a stick, cross-checked the guy in the face when he was deep in the zone, right at the doorstep there after a whistle. Likes to go deep into the play, likes to attack the play, has some good recovery skills as well, so we can get back to his defensive post, but really like what we're seeing from Novikov this year. And I think the next stage of his development are going to be to take on more responsibility and maybe take some of those tougher matchups than that Ryan Johnson pair normally gets. Johnson's the guy right now getting the harder assignments. You want to see the next step in Novikov's journey to be, facing the opposition's top line every shift, every game. And until he does that, I think, he'll be kind of getting to the point where he'll work his way into that waiting room to take a run at some more NHL minutes, or his first actually NHL minutes at some point down the road. But he's moving at a good pace, so developing him the right way. And I just wanted to make sure we gave a little love to Nikita Novakov. I mean, plus 39 in just over 100 career AHL games thus far. It's a pretty good number for the young defenseman. Consta Helenius scored some goals in kind of bunches earlier this year. Right now, he's goalless in his last 13 games, and he has just 1 assist in 6 games since returning from the World Junior. So playing the middle of the ice, guy that has the puck on a stick quite a bit. You want to get him going again statistically here and not wait too long to get him heating up. So that's a situation that we'll definitely be monitoring here in the next week or two. Anton Wahlberg, another guy who had a little bit of a goal drought leading into the World Juniors. He went goalless in 13 games leading up to the World Juniors, but came back from that experience, popped in goals in 2 games So now he has 2 goals in his 6 games since returning. My favorite stat about Wahlberg is that he's 31 games into his season and he's yet to commit a penalty. And for his style, in his size, maybe you want to see him take a roughing penalty at some point, impose his will and, assert his physical dominance on some of these players. But he's still a young guy, 19 years old, still working his way into the North American game, doing a good job working the corners. He fishes pucks out, kicks them high, gets to the net. He's done a good job cleaning up some pucks around the net on a couple of his goals this season. But I thought that was kind of interesting. He did get a penalty or 2 at the World Juniors, but at the AHL this season, he's yet to commit an infraction and check out the paint on the walls there in the penalty box. But the player that I think is really worth noting here is Noah Ostlund. He's back from his most recent injury, and he's starting to build up some momentum here and came back. And when the calendar flipped in to January and Hellenius and Wahlberg returned, Ostlund was centering an all-Swedish line with Wahlberg and Isak Rosén. He picked up a goal and 2 helpers in the 4 games that unit was together. And then the last game in Hartford, they put Brett Murray up there and switched him in for Wahlberg, bumped Wahlberg down. In that game against Hartford, Ostlund picked up an empty net goal and 2 assists in that game. And that was the first multiple goal game of his AHL career. The empty netter, really unselfish play by Brett Murray, by the way. Murray goes in all alone on the empty net, kind of looks back, calls Ostlund in, hands the puck off to him for the easy goal. Nice reward for the good game and recent play, really, that we've been seeing from Noah Ostlund this year. So most recent injuries behind him. He is a speedy, dynamic, 2-way playmaker. And what's interesting about Ostlund when you're looking at some numbers that he's currently leading all Amerks forwards by averaging 2.58 shots on goal per game this season. That's a good sign for a 20-year-old player that has consistently worked on his shooting over the last 3 seasons. It's not just the velocity and, the speed and the heaviness of the shot. It's the release and getting it off quicker because he knows that, the North American game plays develop faster. You got to get that puck off of your stick quicker, whether you're making a pass or shooting the puck on net. And he's successfully launching those shots on goal pretty accurately. Doesn't miss the net a lot. And for a player like him, at some point the goals will start going in for him as he continues to build out his resume with more game experience. He's currently shooting at 6.1% success rate. So you want to probably get Ostlund up in that 10% range. If you go back last year and you look at what he did with Vekwa in the SHL, he had 12 goals on 60 shots. So he was a 20% shooter last year. That's a little ambitious. We're asking just for 10%. The year before that, when he was with Djurgården in the 2nd division over in Sweden, he had 8 goals on 60 shots. So that's 13-ish%. So again, if you can get him up around 10%, that's probably a good thing. But needless to say, it's a process. He's moving in a good direction. Just keep him healthy. Another big off season, really, of strength development for Ostlund is necessary. But he's got a lot of good in his game, even when he's not scoring. So the fact that he is getting some points, all the better. All right. Recently on X, I think it was, someone had asked for an update on Brantford Bulldogs goaltender Ryerson Leenders. So I thought we'd spend a couple minutes talking about Leenders, and it's kind of convenient because he just had a pretty good stretch of play that saw him win 6 games in a row. That culminated last Wednesday when he had 36 saves and a 6-2 victory over a very good Niagara Ice Dogs squad. So that was his 6th consecutive win that tied the longest winning streak that Leenders has had since entering the OHL. That winning streak did end on Saturday night when he let in 5 goals in a loss to Central Division leading Barrie. So the hot stretch, it's bumped Leenders up his numbers to 15-11-2 this year, 3.31 goals against, and he's got a 90% save percentage right now. After that win that he had on Wednesday, he got up over 90% for the first time this season, but after allowing 5 to the Colts on Saturday, he's back down to 90%. Wants to keep it there, obviously, and keep gaining on that. But look, Leenders, stylistically, very athletic. He's got good patience in the crease. He's getting better at holding his edges. I've seen him play games this season where he'll make that first save, then he kind of gets down and out, he gets a little scrambly, and he somehow finds a way to make that second and third save. But he's got that really good athleticism. I think that helps him compensate when he gets scrambly, but also just for his, average frame. But he makes good stops, but goaltending isn't always about the saves you make. It's about the goals that you let in. And statistically right now, he's middle of the pack in the OHL, and that's okay. I think he's 12th in save percentage, 15th in goals against average. And, he's got plenty of time. He's in a goalie rotation right now, so he's playing every other game for the Bulldogs. And we'll see if that changes later in the year or definitely next year, because Leenders is going to go back to the OHL next season. I don't think there's any question about that. And we'll see where it goes from there with him. Talented goalie. He's got some technical things to work on. Like I mentioned, continue to get stronger with his pushes and get more powerful and things like that. But, I think when you look at the situation in net that the Sabres have, Leenders, I can see him being in the mix. I think that the Sabres are going to be using Jacksonville in the ECHL to develop their goaltending depth. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, you have Scott Ratzlaff coming in next year. He's already under contract. And honestly, Topias Leinonen perhaps could enter the North American pro ranks next season. And we'll see. Leinonen, by the way, he was nicked up recently, missed about a week of time with Mora and Hockey Allsvenskan, and then he returned to work on Friday, made 23 saves and a victory over Nybro. So now Leinenen's at 12-7 on the year with a 2.18 goals against average and a 9.14 save percentage. That goals against average and save percentage pretty comparable to what Devin Levi's doing at the AHL level. Now, granted, Leinonen is playing at what is essentially Coast League level competition over in Sweden. But look, it's been a perfect reset for him. And given where he's going, the draft investment that they made with them, it's been, he's reclaimed his space and his positioning in the Sabres system, in my opinion. I think it's very realistic. I've said this before here on Prospect Avenue. I'm going to say it again. I think it's realistic that they strongly consider a contract offer to Leinonen to get him over to continue developing stateside next season. So we'll see where it goes. It's not an episode of Prospect Avenue unless I give a quick update on Prokhor Poltapov. So we're going to do that quickly. Poltapov, continued progression, I think, is the message today. If you look at his season to date, got off to that really hot start, was scoring goals, popped in a couple shorties, was racking up assists as well. But it's more about the role and the trust that the coaching staff has really showed in Poltapov throughout the season. And it's only escalated recently. Continued progression, like I said. 2 of his last 3 games have seen Poltapov earn season highs in time on ice. So 3 games ago, he went out for 17:31, came back the next game, 17:38. More importantly, all that production that he had at the beginning of the year, he was doing it at even strength and shorthanded. He was barely getting a sniff on the power play. He's now starting to see a couple power play shifts every game. So that power play time is ramping up. Nice reward for the trust and the reliability in Poltapov. And of course, his skill. He's a skilled player. But he's also being featured as a primary option in shootouts. Whenever CSKA gets to shootouts, they're throwing him out there in their top options. So moving in a really good direction. Poltapov currently 3rd on CSKA in team scoring with 10 goals and 17 assists. So he's got 27 points. Those goal and assist totals are more than his previous 2 seasons combined. So again, statistical leap, just an overall leap in his game. This was a player, I think, in the past, thought he was a superstar, didn't always want to listen to the coaches, was just going to go out and do his own thing. He's starting to mature. He's starting to get it a little bit more. He signed that extension. He's going to be a big-time player for CSKA while he's still playing in the KHL. And all signs point to Poltapov becoming a pretty polished product whenever he decides that he's ready, if he's ready. Okay, we don't want to assume anything, but we're pretty confident that he wants an NHL career and he could be a pretty polished product by the time he does make it over to North America. All right, got to wrap it up here pretty quickly. So I just want to get into a quick trivia question for you all. Which Sabres prospect is presently leading the way in goals per game with one team? Now that's the kicker here, right? Because you see guys go up and down, switch teams, switch levels or whatever. Which Sabres prospect is presently leading the way in goals per game with one team this season? Isak Rosén has decent scoring clip this year with 18 and 37 games, but it's not him. Alexander Kizikov in limited duty in Rochester this year. He's played just 7 games. He has 3 goals. Not him. Olivier Nadeau down in the Coast League with Jacksonville. He's got 10 goals in 20 games this season, but it's not him either. The answer is Joel Ratkovich Bernson, who recently produced back-to-back hat tricks with Västervik and now has 13 goals in 22 games in Sweden's 3rd division. So he's second on the team right now with 24 points. And that is not bad for a guy who entered the season without a place to play because the team that he latched down with last season, Kristianstad, they lost their license to play in Sweden's 3rd division this year. So Ratkovich Bernson, he had to wait until mid-October to find a place to play. Signed a 1-month contract, got it going quickly, was popping in goals after he got his foot in the door. They've now extended him for the balance of the season. Bernson's been a guy, always been a natural goal scorer. If you've been following along for the past couple of years, was a guy that tore up the under 18 and under 20 ranks in Sweden. And it just seems like he's lost his way a little bit professionally once he left the Frölunda program. Played a little bit with FPS in Finland's 2nd division last year. He left that team after the holidays, joined Kristianstad. We know how that ended. And look, he's always been a goal scorer. He's always maybe just doesn't always have that complete game commitment. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy. He's got some flaws in his game, no doubt. So he's obviously a long shot. But with the Sabres holding his rights for 1 more year, we're going to keep him in that never say never bucket because guys that can score, hey, you can never have enough of that in your system. Sabres hold his rights, like I said, 1 more season. He keeps coming over to development camp. He's still keeping himself in the program. So I'm just curious to see what's going to happen with this guy, over really next season. Can he latch on with an Allsvenskan team? I think he can, but time will tell. But needless to say, he is at 0.57 goals per game this season, and he is the answer to your Sabres Prospect Avenue trivia question this week. So a couple other odds and ends before I get out of here. The journey for Norwin Panocha continues. So if you go back since being drafted, Chicoutimi the Q got cut from there, went to Prince Albert in the WHL, didn't stick there very long, played just a handful of games. Then he got picked up by Green Bay in the USHL. Well, his stay in Green Bay did not last long either after his rights were dealt following the World Junior Championship to the Omaha Lancers. And then he just said, I'm out. He's now latched on with Berlin in the DEL, and he's probably going to finish out the year there. He's played 4 games in the DEL thus far. He's only getting about 7 to 8 minutes a game, not playing a ton. He's got 1 assist in those 4 games. I think he's going to be up and down between Berlin and the top league and the Lausitz Foxes in the 2nd division. But needless to say, Panocha is back on his home turf in Germany, and we'll see what happens for him the rest of this season. And lastly, the Minnesota Golden Gophers have listed pretty much all season long on their line sheets and on their website that the Sabres 2019 4th round pick, Aaron Huglen, they're listing him as a free agent. So I've removed him from tracking. This will be the last time we probably talk about him here on Prospect Avenue. I don't know. I think technically the Sabres still hold his rights because he's in school, but needless to say, I don't know if that was his decision or if the Sabres already told him that he's a free agent, whatever. It's in writing. They're making him a free agent. So I'm just going to move on. I've removed him from the stats page, and we wish him all the best moving forward. Huglen, great human being, a lot of values. He's already married. I think he's expecting a child soon, if it's not been born already. He's going to be 24 in March. He'll probably play some professional hockey, I'm sure, somewhere, whether it's in a lower professional league in the United States or maybe over in Europe. We'll see what becomes of Huglen's hockey career, but we do wish him all the best. Just didn't work out. Really skilled player in high school. Did some good things with Fargo in the USHL, coming back from a really bad back injury and having surgery. I think he should be really proud of the fact that he's even made it this far to become a pretty solid contributor in the Big Ten with the University of Minnesota. But if they're listing him as a free agent, we're going to take him off the list and move on. And speaking of moving on, I'm going to call it a day here on Prospect Avenue. If you haven't hit the like button on this video, if you could please on your way out, I really appreciate it. I'm Kris Baker, and we will see you again next time. Thanks for stopping by.